It's amazing that we have people that love their job. And I have surveyed many of our public records teams over the years, and they all come back and they love doing it for the applicant to get through the process. They love doing it for the customer to make sure they're not hiring the wrong person for that particular job, right? So they love what they do. And you just have to find those people that love doing it.
Welcome to Behind the Screens, conversations with background screening pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Screens, featuring people who are the folks that make the background screening industry go. The people that make it happen, the people who know what's happening, and the people who can tell us what's happening. And today I'm very happy to have with us a person who is truly a member of the backbone of the industry, one of those people that really make things happen, has been doing it for a while, and has done it so well in so much depth that she has now become a member of the board of directors for the PBSA, which is quite an accomplishment. And I am talking about our guest today, Kathleen Nottingham. Kathleen, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks, Les. It's so nice of you to have me on. I was excited to do this.
Well, I'm very excited to have you, and you have quite the resume and a lot of experience. So let's get right into the very first question I ask everyone. Tell us about your current position, what you do, and what you find interesting about it.
Yeah, so I am the SVP of Public Records and Compliance at ScoutLogic. What I find really interesting about this position, it kind of brings me back to the beginning of my career. I started in public records, and what I love to do is to manage people. And this is a chance working with a company, a young company that's growing and winning, to kind of come back and help them go through all that growth.
Okay. And so in your role as SVP, what's the SVP stand for now?
Senior Vice President.
Senior Vice President. Okay, Senior VP. I knew that. I was just testing. I knew you knew that.
Yeah.
As that, what's the sort of things that you do? And I assume you also do compliance as well.
Yeah, so I'm really just there to make sure that we're following all the compliance rules that you need to on an operations side, right? I manage the operations teams in public records and compliance. How are we getting the searches done, managing vendors, making sure that the teams, the systems are up and running and working for everybody. So that's really what I end up doing every day. It's managing of the people, really.
That's great. And ScoutLogic, someone else I know worked there, Katie Mahoney, I used to work there with you. Right?
Yeah, she's a great ally for me and for the team. So she's been really helpful as I onboarded onto ScoutLogic, for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you guys are clearly the dynamic duo. What was your career path? What was your journey like to get to where you are today?
You know, my career, when I did 2 stints in college, my first one didn't turn out as I thought it was. I started a family pretty young in my life. And when my kids were school age, I decided to go back to college. And while I was not in college, I worked at a law firm a couple hours every week and kind of really enjoyed that kind of atmosphere. And so when I was thinking of going back to school, what did I want to do? I had 2 young children. What was I going to do? There was a paralegal program. So I went through that and really kind of thought I'd work for attorneys. And I thought maybe what they made most of their money in, at least in the law firm that I was at, was divorces. So kind of got a little bit too much for me. But when we were graduating, just like in the last weeks of graduation, one of my peers in the classes was like, I asked her what she was going to be doing. She goes, oh, my brother-in-law just started this background check company. And she goes, so if you're interested, he's hiring. And I was the 11th employee in this little tiny company in Montana that started. And at that point, public records, I started as a public record researcher. 70% of the work was done with actual vendors walking into the courthouse and completing the searches. Versus today, it's, flipped, right? Most of the stuff can be done online. So it's interesting, but I love it. I love public records, and I just kind of grew up into leadership from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So your career took you. You're with other large firms before you were at ScoutLogic, right?
Yeah, the large firm gave me a lot of opportunities and a chance to move from Montana to Nashville, Tennessee. And so I've been here for about 13 years, and it's been the majority of my life in Montana. So coming to a totally new state with a lot more population was fun for me and my husband, and it was great.
That's great. So the paralegal program actually then launched you into, it was kind of a launching pad.
Yeah. It actually helped me. I think a lot of people coming in this industry, it's so different what they think it is compared to what it was, but kind of understanding the court systems and how cases work through the legal system, at least in the public records realm, helped me really catch on and just, excel at being a researcher in public records.
Yeah. And of course, as a public records researcher pro like you are, obviously we don't have to tell this audience, understanding the records, reading the records, is it accurate? Does it belong to the person we're talking about? Is it reportable under state rules? I mean, it just goes on. It's infinitely more complicated than people think.
Yes. Yeah. And, the automation of it takes the easy stuff away, and you're really stuck with what is the most difficult. The outliers is what you're dealing with. So definitely.
Oh, that's fantastic. So in your journey with public records, and we're going to circle back to how public records have changed over the years a little bit, but what was an early lesson you learned during this time when you were starting as a paralegal in a smaller firm, went to a larger firm, you're now with a new firm? What was a lesson you learned in business or in screening or in whatever, that's something that stays with you to this day?
Right. Well, I think what I learned, it's two things, right? It's just attitude. Having the right attitude, positive attitude, helps you get a lot. But I really think what helped me is understanding how to manage up. And what I mean by that is really, how do you make your boss's life easier? And if you can master that, you can work with a lot of different bosses. And as you grow into bigger organizations and things like that, you have so many different bosses, and you get a boss every few years, right? Things like that. So understanding how they work and just making sure that you're doing what they want, what they need, and how can you make their life easier is really kind of gives you chances for more opportunities.
I mean, I haven't actually heard that term before. It's fascinating. So, I mean, obviously we all know about managing your direct reports, but the term manage up is really a brilliant insight. The care and feeding of whoever you report to, right?
Yeah, what drives your career, right? If you can get along and perform for that person, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a different style for each, mentor or boss that you have. So it's good.
And managing up, I assume, just thinking out loud, can also include educating someone that you report to or someone who on the executive team, educating them. Because they may not know what this area is all about. It may be unrealistic.
Exactly. Yeah. And as I got, that was early in my career, just figuring that out. But as my career, the progression of it, I did get a lot of bosses who did not know anything about the industry. And you do have to teach them what's about, because coming in, you still have to understand what a background check entails, how the systems worked, all those things. And it does take some time to train somebody to manage it. You need to understand how it works.
So you need to manage your managers in order to manage you, so they understand the reality of things.
Right. Exactly.
And of course, to do that, you have to be diplomatic and understand where they're coming from. And I mean, just all sorts of skills when it comes to managing up.
Yeah, I think you really have to. When somebody comes in new and their, CEO brings them in because they believe that they can do a great job, I think you have to give them the respect and the benefit of it, that they do know what they're doing. They may not know everything about the business, but you have to give them time, and that there's a reason for them to be there. And if you have that type of attitude, that relationship's going to be easier, and then you both can succeed, instead of, thinking that somebody should come in and they should know everything. It doesn't happen that way. You have to be able to allow them to learn and understand for them to actually bring the knowledge that they need to bring to the company.
And what's really fascinating about that is a lot of times, particularly in the age of acquisitions, you'll have people who come in who, you know, their attitude is no matter what the company is, it's really a widget. Every company is a widget, and business is business. And educating people as to what our widget about, people just don't understand the complexity and the subtleties and the nuances and the opportunities, the many opportunities to do things incorrectly that could lead to lawsuits, right? Right.
Oh, absolutely. And explaining, to your boss about productivity per hour between Cuyahoga, Ohio, and Davidson County, Tennessee, could be different on how the information is given to us, what's missing, how difficult the case is, you know, the type of client and the applicants that they have, how many hits they have. So there's a lot to know. It is not the same widget in the same way every time. It's
Right.
definitely different.
I mean, your job, it just sounds like this might be before your time, anyways, Les, but the old days also, they used to have people in there with sticks and plates that were twirling all over the place. And it sounds a little bit like that. Just managing a whole lot of twirling plates that are going at different speeds in different directions.
It's exciting though, right? It definitely keeps you on your toes, and it's something that I just never got tired of in public records. It's something, some county, some case, some applicant unique, profile makes that case interesting to read and listen to and understand and figuring out how to report it. It's challenging. So those are like little puzzles that I like to do and, figure out the answers to.
So that's the key. I mean, it's always one puzzle after another. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute or two, but I'm not sure all this new technology, and now we're at AI, I'm not so sure that the process you described is ever going to come to a halt, at least not anytime soon. It's just AI just gives you more opportunities to have to go through a maze, a decision maze.
It gives you more challenges or different challenges, I guess. And yeah, like I said before, it does take away some of the easy steps, easy tasks. But what it does leave you with the complexity, and there's not going to be an overhaul in the U.S. justice system for every county to be on the same system and report the same way. It's just never going to happen. And to get AI to do everything that a public records researcher or, a compliance team would need to look at, it is probably too difficult. Definitely AI is going to help them get out some easy stuff, but the hard stuff is still going to be for the humans to think about and resolve and make that phone call to the court clerk or walk into the courthouse to pull a file. I think those things are still going to happen for quite some time.
And I'm skipping around a little bit. That really nicely takes us right to the question I ask people about changes and challenges. So from your perspective, what's the biggest changes you've seen in the area of public records and compliance and acquisition? And what do you think might be the biggest challenge in the future?
Yeah, so, I won't really go into the technology because I think we all know that's the biggest change. But for me, the biggest change that I've seen is the access to public records, right? The redaction of what's available versus even those courts, deciding, what you can do and what you can pull out of the public access. And that itself was a big challenge also, right? It's the biggest change, but it's also the biggest challenge, right? We have to be complete and accurate. And for us to get that information, if they're holding it back, it makes us do so many different types of workarounds to find, does it match my candidate? Is it a conviction or not a conviction? All of those things that if it's not clearly there on the public access terminal or online, we have to make workarounds and processes to go find that information. To me, that is, and because I'm in public records and in operations and leadership, that is definitely the biggest challenge. I think one of the other challenges that goes on with technology, and as you put more onto these systems, is the cyber attacks. And that presents a challenge for customers, end users, right? When you cannot get to that county because there's a cyber attack and they've taken all their systems down, you could be waiting days, weeks, and in some cases months to complete that county search. And not all statewide. actually fill the gap of that county, right? It may not be fully up to date, may have some gaps, may not have all completed records in it. So that's another challenge that I think technology has brought to us is, another way for somebody to come in and make it, more difficult to do the job.
Yeah, this whole thing about access, I won't get on my high horse, but it's just so annoying that judges sometimes don't understand the law of unintended consequences. They think they're protecting people's privacy, and in fact, they're holding people back from career advancements that they want because applicants want the employers to have these records. So I'm
Right.
not sure who the judges think they're protecting, but anyway, that's a whole other issue for a whole other day, and people have written a lot about that. So going back a little bit, what do you most enjoy about the screening industry? You talked about that you love the puzzles and the challenge, and every day is something new. No 2 days are alike. But overall, what kept you in the industry? You went through as a
Yeah.
paralegal, you started, but you stayed and you rose and you accomplished. And what was that all about for you?
So the two things that I'm passionate about are compliance and people, right? And it's not really about how do you put that policy on a document, but it's really taking that document that the legal team put together for you and how you do something, but how do you connect that to the people and how do they take that policy and use it every day? So it's similar to a puzzle, right? You're trying to make sure that it comes out in layman's terms for them to understand how do you apply it to that criminal case or that civil case or sanctioned case. There's so much that when you read a legal policy document, it doesn't give you kind of the step by step on how you would read that case and then how do you apply those rules to it. That's really what kind of helps me. I do like even today just sit there and understand what question a researcher has for why they made a mistake on a case is kind of going through and understanding what documents did they look at, what rules and regulations did they look at in their process, and what they didn't connect to make that mistake, or was there something that we could have changed in that document to help them not make that mistake, or how to go get the answer when something is not there. And we can't have every scenario of every case in the criminal history or civil histories of the US, but it can actually, providing examples. And then, still today we see something different than I saw 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And just connecting all those dots for the researchers and how they process is something that I just find fun and to get back. And I just want to make their day easier because what we give them daily is getting harder and harder because of technology. And as we start taking things and pushing it through easy ways to get it done, great. We take the human out of those easy pieces, but it's the hard stuff that's left. And it takes a brain. And how do you teach them to, walk through that scenario and think that, oh, that's similar to that scenario. Would it work here? Those are the types of things that are interesting.
That's fantastic. And then when it comes to compliance, the neget step, because you get through all that, is the obligation of the FCRA to report accurately.
Right. And completely. Yeah, we've got to have it all. So even knowing the sources that you're using, knowing what the vendor is doing, what source are they going to? How far are they going back? Are we meeting the client's needs versus, not only, complying with FCRA, but meeting the needs of the clients. So it is all dynamic and there's so much we make the researchers do today. It's amazing that we have people that love their job. And I have surveyed many of our public records teams over the years, and they all come back and they love doing it for the applicant to get through the process. They love doing it for the customer to make sure they're not hiring the wrong person for that particular job, right? So they love what they do. And you just have to find those people that love doing it. And it's not boring because every case is not the same. Not the widgets are not the same, right? It's always going to be a little bit different.
And we all keep in mind that every case is not just on a sewing line. Every case represents a person, represents an employer who needs to hire, represents a person who wants a job. That person needs to be treated fairly and given a second chance and all the rights that they have as well. So, well, you've had quite a career in doing that, and for major firms and so forth. As you look back at your career, all the things you've talked about, Is there an accomplishment or achievement that stands out as something you're most proud of or brings a smile to your face and in terms of your professional career in the screening industry?
I mean, there's quite a few, right? I mean, as I try to tell and teach my teams, you celebrate all wins, right? It's the small things and the bigger things. As a leader, I think seeing people grow and having them go, whether it's within your company, outside your company, into a different profession, if they feel like they're on the right track and you've helped them find that path, that's always fun. And that always makes you feel good. There is one particular thing, we had my team, was being tested by a large employer to, win the contract. And it was months of getting this done. And, my boss and my boss's boss let me take the call from the CEO, who thanked me and my team for the great job and that we won the contract that we needed to. And, that was just kind of a testament to the team coming together, how I motivated them, how they performed throughout the whole thing. And not even just the teams in the company, but, the vendors that we used and things like that. They really all came together. We got them into that mindset that we needed to do this and this is how you would do it. So that was good. And then, just having, people above you, think about, this is her and her team that did this, right? And they didn't take credit for it. So I think that just kind of also shows you that it's the people that you work with, the people that, spend a lot of your time with. When you have that mutual respect for them and let people have the credit where it's due, it's just incredible. And so I've just been so lucky with the types of people that I've worked for. I mean, the companies themselves are the companies, right? And provide opportunities, of course, and training and things like that. But it is really the people, and whether it's your boss or your peer, if they can work with you and raise you up, elevate you, it's always just an incredible feeling. And so those are the things that I take back and then try to pay it forward. Like, how do I do that with my team today? So those were the things I look back at and just really proud of, and proud of the team for getting it done. So it was just a great time.
Well, that's fantastic because what you described is a situation where everything, thanks to years of hard work and training and mentoring and teaching, everything just gels. I mean,
Yeah.
lots of disparate parts. There's so many ways for those things to go wrong. And when they all come together and everything connects just right, I mean, it is a great feeling.
It's a great feeling, yeah. And I think, operations doesn't always get the credit in what you think. Like, there is a lot of work that goes in, right, on the sales side, on the account management side. So, we didn't win the business ourselves. And I think we know that, right? There's a lot of things that go
Right.
into, winning an account. But it definitely was nice to get that type of credit. It takes really a team, and it's a team that you don't probably work with every day, but all these sales teams, all the account management, all the leaders in the company gel together to actually do what's needed. So it's great. Also, some of the opportunities that have been afforded to me have been, operations doesn't get to talk to customers a lot. They keep us in the background just to run it, right? They know how to talk to customers. They know how much to say, how much not to say. Operations sometimes says a lot, but I've been able to have some opportunities where I can get in front of customers and give them that expertise about public records and the compliance that they need to have. So it's been just really appreciative of people giving opportunity when it's needed. That's also been really helpful to do, and to bring in all those other places to actually make the deal happen.
That's fantastic. You make a great point. A lot of people in the industry just assume, well, you just press a button and we provide the product. It's like in the car industry, you're not giving credit to the people who actually make the car, because
Right.
production actually, that's what's being sold. That's the actual
You just
thing.
want it to be safe and reliable, right? Yeah.
That's great. So, at any rate, I think this has been a great conversation and just a lot of wonderful insights. And I really appreciate it. One of the things that I think is a real feather in anyone's cap, and a feather in your cap, of course, is to be a member of the PBSA Board of Directors. Tell us about your involvement with PBSA.
Yeah, I mean, it started years ago, but really slowly. Opportunities to go to conferences and things like that were sparingly, divided a bunch of people. But I was really lucky to have mentors like Catherine Aldridge and Catherine Leong, who actually went to a lot of the conferences with me and showed me the ropes. I rode her coattails through a lot of those conferences. I'm an introvert, so she kept kind of pushing me, like, you should really look at some of these committees and how to get involved with them. And, one of the conferences that was really their key in, making sure that there was opportunities for you guys to go in and look at what the different committees were. And two of them were really important to me, like best practices. And then Kurt Schwal stood up in a meeting and said, hey, if anybody's interested in getting the PACER system on our federal records, DOBs back on the record, I'm going to meet in this room after this. And I'm like, this guy's crazy to think that he can change the federal government. But to me, it was a part of my job that was a challenge. And so I went and sat and listened to him. And he started the subcommittee of access in, under the Government Relations Committee. And so I started on his committee and started to really kind of understand that and kind of grew up into that, listening to him, having some great wins. I mean, I don't think I did anything personally, but just being a part of it and understanding that we're all going through the same thing. And now we haven't gotten the DLB back on PACER, but we've gotten a lot closer. But we've had some actual wins with getting access to some stuff. So it's been great. I'm still on that committee. I no longer co-chair it. I just kind of sit back and try to give information or try to intake information, really, because it helps my job. So what I would say with anybody coming in and wanting to be a part of it, those committees, if it actually helps your job, do it, because you can actually just intake information. And then, as you start intaking, it's like, well, I should probably give back too. And you start to give more. And, you might get roped into some co-chairing or doing something like that. But it's usually because you can make a difference. And it does feel good to do that. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it continues today to help me do my job better.
That's fantastic. So and having the wins, I mean, when there's a win, that helps everybody. And people may not realize who the unsung heroes are, but all of a sudden, something that before was immensely difficult or not available is suddenly available, and people not realize that committee members and co-chairs and chairs such as yourself made that happen. It doesn't happen by itself.
Right. That's right. It takes time, people, places, and people willing to listen to you. And sometimes It takes a few times to get that court clerk to listen to you, but we can do it. And so it's been a great opportunity, but also it's really rewarding all by itself.
Yeah. And also the rewarding part, I hear from people over and over again, is just, the connections and the contacts you make and the professional growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, just listening to other people and how they have come up through the business and how they're challenging and what's going on in their business is always good to hear.
And then you were tapped or selected to be on the board of directors. So tell us about that.
I think it was a goal early on. I think it was something that I wanted to do, but, being on the access committee for many years, I co-chaired it for a while. I just felt like I could give more. And some of the other committees just didn't fit where I thought I could definitely get into it and be really impactful. So there was an opening for the board and, spent hours making sure that I had enough, what it needed. I tried it out. I'm brand new at it. So I think I'm a person that kind of sits back, watches, see how things are going and seeing where I can actually make an impact. So it's been really great. All of the board members have been great. I had a buddy coming into it to kind of show me the ropes. And this last conference, it was great to kind of sit and talk to everybody, especially some of the newbies, on what was going on and how we can, help each other. So it's been really good.
And you have a 3-year commitment.
Yeah, originally I thought it was 2 years, and then they told me, oh, it's 3. And it's because usually the first year you need to figure out what's going on and how to be impactful. So that's what I'm hoping for, that this year is going to show me how to be impactful on this board.
And then you have 2 years where you'll be impactful and be able to be involved and help and make things progress.
True.
What's the time commitment like? I don't think people appreciate how much time, because you're having a family is a full-time job, having a job is a full-time job, and people don't realize that being on the board is pretty close to a full-time job.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, it's a lot of reading and understanding. And, I learn a lot. I mean, the time that we take each month is not a huge lot of hours. Like I said, if you want to be impactful, you've got to fully understand what it's doing. I come from the operations side, leadership side. Well, some of the board members are coming in as, CEOs and, they've run a business. So, you know, Melissa's running a business with the PBSA. And so it is also interesting to me because you want to be able to run even your own little division in a little company well. You kind of, if you run it as a CEO, you can do it. So having kind of looking at the financials and what they're doing there and how they're, improving year over year and, how they're investing, those things are extremely helpful to me to kind of understand how that's run. How is a nonprofit run and how do you improve it, and listen to all the things that people say about the conferences, about the education series and things like that, what they love about it, what they don't, and then how do you improve it? It's just like what we do at every company that we're at. You're going to get some great feedback and you're going to get some feedback that says, hey, what are you going to improve? And that's what, we're there to help develop and change and grow this association.
And the term that comes to mind, I think we described it. We haven't actually identified the term, but it's continuous improvement, process improvement. I think that's what you're all about.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll have a chance to apply that to PBSA as well. That's fantastic.
I really hope I can. Yep.
I have no doubt. So let's leave screening for a little while. And believe it or not, there is life beyond background screening. And let me ask you, outside of all the great things you've done in background screening and the PBS involvement, what's your hobbies or what you enjoy, what you do for fun, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think I probably told you that I like puzzles. I like to do things like that. I probably watch way too much HGTV thinking that I could renovate something, but don't actually do it. I just tell my husband what to do. But I love to travel. I love to, moving to Nashville is one of the things that there's not a lot of music industry in Montana. So it was fun to come and see, what it's all about and being able to experience that. There's a lot of live music here. So that was kind of a fun thing to go do on a weekend, whether it's at a winery or, just at a brewery or and a lot of drinking going on. But there is always great music too. So it's fun.
So let me just take a wild guess. You must watch a lot of House Hunters International if you like travel, if you like the
I do.
HGTV.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll have to admit, my wife turns it on. Someone's moving to Bali or London or wherever. I get trapped. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I get pulled in. I don't want to watch any more of this. I start watching. And 4 episodes later, so I think I've had enough.
Right.
Well, that sounds like a hoot. You have all the joys of Nashville and all the entertainment and the music and everything in the area. So sometimes we play something called fun facts, something about yourself that people may not know, unrelated to background screening, kind of the secret side of things that I must warn you, once you reveal, it may come back to you at conferences. But
Yeah,
what's your fun fact?
I'm not really all that fun. I think things that something might not everyone knows about me is I have a 10-year-old granddaughter that lives about a block away from me. So that has been she's been close to us in Tennessee, I think, for the last 9 years. So it's been fun to watch her grow and to be able to be that close to her. It's been really great.
Oh my gosh! What a blessing to have a granddaughter, and what a great age too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're getting to the preteen years, so she doesn't like to be around us as much. So
Yeah. Well, it's all stages.
yeah, that's true.
So, Kathleen, this has been great talking to you. I just love a lot of the things that we covered, and it's every episode I learn new things. I have learned a number of new things just talking to you, and it's just been fascinating. Given your experience in the industry and your involvement with PBSA, what would be your advice that you would give somebody? And in fact, you do give advice to people because you're a mentor at heart, I think. What advice you give people that are new to the industry, new to your team, in terms of not only being successful in business, but being successful in the screening industry or just being successful overall in whatever they do?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice that took me a while to actually even entertain and actually do was probably helped me the most. And that was networking. So I had a boss and a mentor that said, you just really need to network within the company, right? And then outside in the industry to network. And I can tell you that by a little bit of push, I'm an introvert, right? So it takes time and energy to actually be out there and put myself out there. But it has been the most rewarding. And I can tell you whether it's just finding that friend or finding that peer that you guys can talk shop about or, help with challenges at work or just even personal, but also it's just the opportunities that's provided, right? When I talked about, how I got in front of customers is because I sat and put myself out there and networked with some of the sales team, some of the account management team, and made sure that they could hear me, see me. And that really the opportunities really just fell in my lap. So it's not like it took some time and some effort to do, but just being friendly and trying to get out there and network with people actually helps you in your career. And so that was just something that's always taken to me. And I still talk to this mentor boss from a long time ago, and he definitely tells me, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, I hate it when you're right? Because he was right a lot. And he told me that I had to tell his wife that, but I think I did in the end. But it's definitely one of the things that's always stuck with me, and it took me a while to get there, but it does help.
One of the things that's really interesting about what you just said is that, I've talked to other people, and we talk about networking a lot, but it's usually in the context of networking, outside of your own firm, people in the industry or other people, or networking with people in a vertical you sell to. But this is just fascinating, the idea of internal networking within your own company. People don't think of that. And the way you describe it is so important. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's harder, but just even having the conversation at the coffee with somebody not in your department. And I know a lot of us are remote now, or it may not be as easy to do it. But if there are things within the company that, you can get into, whether it's a committee in your company or some kind of people do like little things like, we're going to do things that we love gardening. And so there's, a meeting every once a month to go sit and do something like that. There's women's groups, there's things like that. Getting into some of those also can get you into a place where you start talking to other people that are not your just day-to-day people, and then it just happens that oh, well, that I have that question about public records. Well, I know this person, let me go ask them. And if you're helpful and you're figuring out things like that, then they're going to come back to you and they're going to keep on coming back to you. That always helped me. So you always want to be open to helping others, but then also you also have to get out there for them to know that you're there. And for some people, I know that's difficult because I'm like that. For others, it may not be as difficult. And that's just something that's just easy for them to do.
I mean, it's such a great insight, but, just unpacking that bit, being helpful to others ends up helping you. And not that you're helpful to others for the purpose of getting some advantage, but it just works that way. I mean,
yeah, it really does. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So another great lesson is internal mentoring. The people in your own firm at all levels too, right? It doesn't matter where they are in the org chart. The org chart doesn't really matter. People are people, and at some point, org charts change.
That's right. And it's amazing how the CEOs want to understand anything anybody wants to say about what's challenging, what's great about their job. Having that conversation and the ability to do it is sometimes you don't get a lot of those opportunities. So when you do, you should take it.
Well, Kathleen, this has been fantastic. There's just so much to unravel here, and I hope people will listen to this and think about it, because you gave us a lot to think about, a lot of food for thought, and I really appreciate you being on the program. The idea of managing up, the idea of internal networking, the idea of the puzzles, mentoring, understanding the entire system, the entire ecosystem, because it all has to work in the public records area, which is so important, because that's actually, again, that's the product being produced.
Right.
Without what you do, there's no engine, there's nothing to sell, ultimately.
Right.
So it's been great insight. I really appreciate your time here, and also really appreciate your commitment and your contributions to PBSA, and good luck in your time on the board. And before we wrap up here, let me say, do you have any last thoughts or words that you want to share?
I think just thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd love to talk about all those things about mentoring and networking. It's always fun. If I can sit with somebody and give them advice, I definitely will. Ask my husband. I give him lots of advice. He may like it, he may not.
And I assume, just from talking to you, that you would be open if anyone in the industry wants to reach out and network with you as well.
Absolutely.
It's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fantastic interview. Lots of food for thought. And it's been a real pleasure to have on this episode of Behind the Screens Kathleen Nottingham, an extraordinary networker, an extraordinary manager, and just extraordinary everything you've done. So I really appreciate hearing from you. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been another episode of Behind the Screens featuring people who make the background industry run, people who are the backbone of the industry. And you've had a chance today to hear from Kathleen Nottingham. And it's been just a great episode. And stay tuned for future episodes that will be announced on LinkedIn. If you like this program, please be sure to go to YouTube and subscribe and to do a like or a post on LinkedIn so we can get the word out and more people can hear what we're talking about. Kathleen, again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.